Praise the Lord. Good morning. Good to see you. I hope Inter Milan fans have recovered. Understanding the ministry gift of a teacher. Understanding the ministry gift of a teacher is our theme this morning. Apologies to those who have specialized in the pedagogy of education or pedagogical studies, because I am not going to go there. I am going to restrict myself to the text and to the theme. Because if we were to do a bit of pedagogy here, that would mean we would have to borrow some theories, and I am hesitant to go there. Welcome, and thank you very much for throwing away the blanket early in the morning. And welcome those of you who are joining us on different platforms and maybe on television. I can't say good morning to those because I don't know which time zone you are in. A very big thank you to the leadership of All Saints Cathedral for giving me this opportunity. Let us pray together once again. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving us this time together to sit at your feet. We pray that you speak to each one of us and help us to receive from you. But more importantly, make us into the people that you want us to be. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Our text is Ephesians chapter 4. And we will zero in on verse 11. I will do a little bit of an introduction, and then we will go into the ministry of a teacher, asking ourselves who a teacher is, and how was he teaching then, and how is he teaching now, and maybe why is it important in the church, and how do we handle different age groups, and then we should be ready to conclude. Ephesus, where we pick our text, was a city in Asia Minor, present-day Turkey, commercial, political, and religious center. Commercial in that it was at the intersection of a trade route. Political in that Romans who were in charge at this time pitched camp at Ephesus. And religious because there were many temples and people worshipped different gods. Overall, Paul writes to encourage believers to be built up, to grow to perfection as a body of Christ through the exercise of the Christ-given gifts, until every believer attains a Christ-like character. And this is where the challenge is for you and me today. That whose character are you molding others after in the way you speak, in the way you act, in the way you conduct and present yourself? As a Christian, what matters is a Christian character. A teacher is an instructor or a trainer who creates an environment where others learn. So what do others learn from you? Last Sunday, 4th, I did a little bit of an inquiry. I work with Makerere University Business School. So I did a bit of an inquiry. I set up a 2-page questionnaire. Now I don't want to call it research. I set up a 2-page questionnaire, and I asked those young people what they have learned from their parents, and what they like and what they don't like. Oh my. Then I also asked what they learned from church teachers or from church leaders. and what they like and what they don't like. In fact, I even asked them whether there are any who are willing, learning from us, to go for ministry training. Now, it was a little bit disturbing. I will come back to that a little bit later. You shouldn't be laughing, by the way. A Bible teacher has a preaching and teaching ministry. A Bible teacher has both teaching and preaching ministry, and the focus and the niche is communicating biblical truth through teaching and training for transformation. Through teaching and training for transformation. So that you can use different methods for teaching, but then specifically we need to train and help people to get to that level when we can begin to see a difference in the way they live, a difference in the way they talk, a difference in the way they conduct themselves. And once there is that transformation, and once there is that change for good, then God will be glorified. And there will be a testimony that truly you and I are Christians. So we need to work hard. Now, this is not for teachers only, and this is not only for clergy. I am coming to that in a short while. But a teacher also ensures that people grow in knowledge. And not only knowledge, but also understanding. And not only in that knowledge, understanding, but also application. And more to that, they should be able to develop a passion for the Word of God. So they need knowledge, understanding, application, and be passionate about the Word of God. Sometimes it amazes me how Muslims are passionate about the Quran. You know, these days when you attend Interreligious Council of Uganda meeting, a Muslim will be the one to lead prayers and will be the one to lead the devotion. And they bring it out passionately. And sometimes I wonder, where are the Christians? And in some of the Christian schools, they have real pitched camp there. And they are passionately spreading Islam in a very subtle way. This is not talking about Islam, but we are talking about being passionate about the Word of God. And so why teaching ministry? Especially today. Why teaching ministry? It is to ensure that the church grows to spiritual maturity. Now, All Saints as a sanctuary cannot grow to spiritual maturity. It's members of All Saints Cathedral who should grow to spiritual maturity. And why is this a concern for me? Because many members of our church, many members who are supposed to be fellowshipping with, are being swayed by all kinds of wind. There was a clip that circulated, and I'm sure some of you, somebody who was a member of Church of Uganda, I don't want to say which congregation, was passionately talking about a certain man of God. And you know, he was asked about Moses, he was asked about Abraham, he was asked about Jesus. Compare Moses, Abraham, and that man of God. And that young man passionately said that man of God is at the same level with Moses, same level with Abraham, same level with Jesus. And then he concluded by saying, in fact, he is even above Jesus. That is where we are at. And we are saying we need to grow to maturity. Without teaching and a passion for the Word of God, then members of the church will lack wisdom and they will lack insight into the things of God. Because I work predominantly with students, each time I preach as Francis Osire, at the end of my sermon, at the end of my teaching, I always allow room for questions. And sometimes you just see that this one is coming from a certain group. And you can see this one is asking, and you begin to wonder. So what makes teaching ministry unique? Teaching ministry is lived. It is not only lived, but it is also shared. Now, the life that a mature person lives is a witness and a testimony to the world out there, to the non-believers out there. Have you ever been somewhere and people look at you for a few minutes and then they come to you and they ask, are you also born again? Canon Grace, I want to imagine that you are not here because you are our senior. Most of the time, I don't put on my clerical shirt. Because I want to mix with people. I want to feel what people are going through. One day I wedded a couple here. And I went for the reception. After the wedding, we took one photo there. I came back, went home, changed, put on my African shirt, went for the reception, sat with everybody behind there, sat between the two people. One person on this side didn't know that I was a reverend. The one on this side knew that I was a reverend. So the other one who didn't know that I was a reverend started telling the other one all things about clergy. And the other one tried to stop him. Now, this one was not reported. I heard it with my own ears. And so, teaching ministry is lived. And we need to live up to what we teach. It is also shared, so that what I live, I am able to pass it on, because I know the value in it. Teaching versus preaching and testifying. While preaching is proclaiming or announcing the message of the gospel in such a way that the hearer will accept the message and act upon it, to testify means to tell about something you have seen or something that you have experienced. So what is it that you have experienced that you can passionately share? Or you and I are the type who says, do as I say, don't do as I do. I love doing confirmation, especially with teenagers. I love teenagers. Actually, you put me in teenagers, I flow very well. And so one day, I was teaching about drugs. Now, guys, I don't have any apologies for people who drink. So I taught those young people, and I told them about dangers of alcohol. And one young girl said, thank you very much, I didn't know these things. And she said, I am going to talk to my mother. I prayed for her, and she went home. I didn't ask her about the mother. And indeed, true to her promise, she went and faced the mother and told the mother to stop drinking. And the mother told her, before you were born, I was drinking. Have you ever seen me sleeping on the road? Have I ever called you for help? Or have I ever asked you for money for drinking? The following day, I was teaching them about deviations in media use. And the young girl during break comes and says, Reverend, you know what? This is what Mommy did to me. And you can see, I am talking about teaching being lived. I am talking about sharing an experience that you have. Now, if your experience is only the bad side and the negative one, that is what you are going to propagate, and it is not going to help us. No wonder in Uganda today, people at all levels they say we are hungry and we are angry. And that is bad. In the Old Testament, When you read the story of Jehoshaphat in 2 Chronicles, we are told because of the commitment to teach the word of God, the Bible said there was peace. And we are told Jehoshaphat even prospered. 2 Chronicles chapter 17. Maybe we could flip there briefly before I draw this. Second Chronicles chapter 17. In verse 3, we are told the Lord was with Jehoshaphat because in his early years he walked in the ways that his father David had followed. He did not consult the Baals, but sought the God of his father and followed his commands, rather than the practices of Israel. Verse 7, in the third year of his reign, he sent his officials, Ben-Hail, Obadiah, Zechariah, Nathanael, and Micaiah. What did he send them to do? To teach in the towns of Judah. With them were certain Levites, Shemaiah, Nathaniah, Zebadiah, Ashed, Shemiraroth, Jehonathan, Adoniah, Tobiah, and Adonijah, and the priests Elishama and Jehoram. They taught throughout Judah, taking with them the book of the law of the Lord. They went around all the towns of Judah and taught the people. The beauty of it is in verse 10. That is what I wanted. Because of the teaching of the word of God, because of the teaching ministry. Verse 10, the fear of the Lord fell on all the kingdoms of the lands surrounding Judah, so that they did not make war with Jehoshaphat. Some Philistines brought Jehoshaphat gifts and silver as a tribute, and the Arabs brought him flocks, 7,700 rams, and 7,700 goats. Jehoshaphat became more and more powerful. The secret, the key to prosperity is found in internalizing the word of God. Uganda is seemingly moving into middle income. There are some statistics that are pointing towards that. But you go to some rural areas and you find Ugandans are still struggling to get a meal a day. People are still sleeping in grass-thatched houses. And you will find people are still struggling with jiggers. The same calamities and the same disasters are happening year out, year in. But look at what God did for people. Could it be partly because we have left out God in one way or the other? Today, some church leaders have set their own standards, and we can find some of those standards in 1 Samuel, where we are told the people demanded for a king. And they told Samuel, the prophet of God, we want our own king, like other nations. And we want to be like everybody else, except what we are supposed to be as Christians. But David got it in Psalm 119 and verse 11. And he said, your word have I hidden in my heart, that I might not do what? Sin against you. Praise the Lord. Different age groups. For children, Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7 King James or New King James says diligently teach. NIV says impress upon your children. Talk about them. And so who then are to do the teaching ministry? The father and the mother lay a foundation. Most of our children have been delegated to be brought up by maids, whose maid, the background you don't know. When it comes to visitation day, it is the driver who brings some of the supplies. In one of the campaigns, one young man at the university said, for the last 3 months, I have not seen Dad. Yesterday, I was happy to see him on the TV. And the Bible is saying, teach your children. It is not a responsibility. Deuteronomy 6:7. It is not the responsibility of the maid. It is not a responsibility of the church. Children is the church. Father and mother lay a foundation. Because what they say, they are supposed to live it. So that they share and impress and impact and influence the child for God. And then the Bible rightly says, whoever welcomes these little children in my name, welcomes who? Welcomes me. That is what Luke says in Luke chapter 9 and verse 14. Teenagers can be a challenge, and they can challenge everything they have learned in their infancy or in their childhood. When I did the inquiry among these young people, some of the things they had against us fathers. So I am not only talking to the men here, I am also talking to myself because I am also a father. Some of the things they had against their father, one said, Daddy, I wish he could only stop drinking alcohol. That the man can gallop. And he ended there. No, she ended there, it was a girl. I actually told them to remain anonymous, but some of them went ahead to put their names and even put full name and put even telephone contact. And then somebody said, I wish Daddy could also talk a little bit more. Daddy is quiet. And then one again said, I wish Daddy could leave his adulterous ways. And then another girl said, let men be men. About his father, she was saying, let men be men. And then another one said, Daddy, we want time with you. And about mothers, quarreling, hot temper, selfish, and always quick to complain. There are many methods we can use for teaching. Let me say this, for all teachers to note. It begins from you and me as a parent at a family level. Teachers take note of this. Parents take note of this. Leaders take note of this. That we should all believe that we need teaching. We need to learn. Of course, they say experience is the best teacher, but what is lived is the best. Number 2, we must know that without God we are lost. Number 3, we must know that we need to grow spiritually. And until we bury ourselves in the Word of God, we cannot grow. And then we must live what we teach. Let me conclude this way. In Galatians chapter 2, verse 20, Paul says, I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me, and the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Teaching a lesson or lessons lived, practiced, treasured, and of eternal value, both in word and deed, is the greatest gift an individual, a family, a fellowship, a church, an institution, organization, or political leaders can offer Uganda today. May the good Lord bless you.